I had just watched the movie The Social Network, and I thought, that looks cool. Building a tech startup looks cool. The idea that I had was there should be an app where you should be able to push a button and get a lawn mowing service. I thought I knew everything there was to know about getting a business going and growing it and selling it, but nothing I had learned in that first journey applied to the second journey. We realized that if we were going to be in the software business, we were going to have to learn how to build software. I didn't know what I didn't know, and that was a good thing, because if I had known how hard it was going to be, I never would have done it.
We're going to be jumping into talking all about how you went from owning a landscape company, 8-figure landscape company, selling it, and then getting into software. Totally opposite from guiding foremen and winning projects. And I'm hopefully going to get through this by maintaining my voice. We'll see if we can do it. These colds are starting to come in hot and heavy this fall. So, Bryan, as we start out here, give me your origin story. How'd you get into the landscape industry, build up an 8-figure business, sell it, and then get into software? Let's see what that's all about.
Yeah. So one thing about the lawn care and landscaping industry is you can learn about 80 to 90% that goes into running any business by going and getting a push mower and trying to mow 10 yards in a week. I mean, you learn marketing, business operations, budgeting, if you try to get helpers, employee management and leadership and the difference between the two, and things like customer service. And so that's how it was for me. I started mowing yards in high school, and I needed the way to pay for college. So I kept cutting grass in college. And then by the time I graduated business school, I had to do some back of the envelope math. And I figured out that I was actually going to take a pay cut by going into the job market with this business degree versus the amount of money I was making mowing yards. And so I took what little I learned in business school and doubled down in the landscaping business and made a little business plan. I didn't really want to be a lawn guy the rest of my life, but I did see a lane that if I could take the little business that I had built and grow it to maybe 5 or 10 times the size, that it actually could be a real company. And I was very lucky that I was growing up outside of Nashville, Tennessee, in a town called Murfreesboro. And this town and the region in general were growing with new apartment complexes, new subdivisions, new neighborhoods, new offices, new shopping centers. And every one of these projects needed a reliable landscaping company for the original installation and the ongoing maintenance and all of those things. And so every one of those new developments was a new swing at the plate for me. So I had the wind at my back and ended up building the company to around 150 employees, $10 million a year in sales. And then over a 15-year period of time, the company was eventually acquired by a national company that runs these types of businesses all over the country. Kind of like a roll-up that you're starting to see a lot in different home services trades. So luckily, I was able to start a business in a growing market, use what little I learned in business school, made a business plan, and just kind of executed it along the way and ended up selling the business. And ultimately, I kind of retired at the age of 33. And then I got really bored and thought, okay, what am I going to do now? And I just watched the movie The Social Network. And I thought, that looks cool. Building a tech startup looks cool. And I didn't know what I didn't know, and that was a good thing. It was kind of naivete as an asset. And the idea that I had was there should be an app where you should just be able to push a button and get a lawn mowing service. And that same idea is what we're working on today with GreenPal. 10, 12 years later, GreenPal is the app that you can use to order a lawn mowing service anywhere in the country.
All right. I love this. I don't want to glaze over the fact that at age 33, you could essentially retire. You brought a company from $0 to 10 million plus and you sold it. That's pretty incredible. I'm just curious, did you have a partner in that business, or is this?
Yeah, I did. I had a partner, and he and I, neither one of us was married. And so we were kind of married to the business. We worked on this thing 6, 7 days a week for a decade plus. And he ran the installation side and I ran the maintenance side. And together we were both good at what we did. It was 1 + 1, it equaled 3 or 5. And we went through a lot together, he and I. And eventually selling the business was a very challenging thing to do because we had never done that. And it was kind of coming out of the Great Recession when we navigated that. And it was a journey. And after I did all of that, I thought I knew everything there was to know about getting a business going and growing it and selling it. But I was quickly humbled, realizing that nothing I had learned in that first journey applied to the second journey. And I kind of had to learn everything all over again. And that was humbling. But looking back, that's what made it fun. You know, if you're doing new things, getting new skill sets, conquering new territory, that's what makes it fun.
All right, so let's look at the next step here with my GreenPal. You said you saw the social network and you're like, that's cool. I'm going to do that. Okay, sweet. So you dive in headlong. What was your first move when it came to starting this tech startup?
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't know how to build software. I never had built a website or anything like that. I didn't know the first thing about it, to be honest. I really felt like all I needed to do was just take my idea and go to one of these development shops. So, a little design studio that makes websites. I could just tell them what I wanted, they would build it, and then I could market it. And that's literally what I thought. And I didn't know what I didn't know. And that was a good thing because if I had known how hard it was going to be, I never would have done it. So that was actually a lucky break. But spent a year working with a local shop in Nashville, and my co-founder and I pulled our money together. And I didn't want to spend all of my money that I had made selling the business trying to launch the second one because I didn't want to go backwards. I didn't ever want to run a weed eater again or anything like that. And so I kind of had to have this second business kind of stand on its own quickly. And so the two of us pulled together some seed capital around $200,000. He liquidated his 401k and I matched it. And we spent all of that on this development shop to build the first version of GreenPal. And took them like 10, 11 months. And we get this thing and we try to launch it into the market. And we realize, oh man, this thing is dead on arrival. It's hard to use, it's confusing. The pros hate it. Customers, it's clunky on their side. Like if we try to change order this thing to success, it's going to take 100 years, especially as slow as these guys were. And so we had like a come to Jesus moment where we realized that if we were going to be in the software business, if we were going to be in the tech business, we were going to have to learn how to build software. There was just no way around it because we had to have control of it. We had to be able to improve it. It'd be like trying to start a restaurant and you had never cooked a meal outside of a microwave and you didn't have your own recipes and you hated cooking. That's kind of like what trying to start a tech business with not knowing how to code, what it's like. And so we had to teach ourselves how to build software. One of my co-founders went to a software boot camp and I went to
Oh
YouTube.
my.
I went to YouTube University and it took us a year, but we scrapped the whole website and started rebuilding it from scratch with what we were learning as we were going.
Oh
And
my gosh.
another year later, we had a usable product that we could iterate on and fix as we went. And we began to acquire users just in Nashville. And we spent another year testing it in Nashville. Then we launched a second market and a third. And little by little, we went from doing 10 transactions a week to 100 to then 1,000 and then to 10,000 and all the way up to several hundred thousand and slowly growing it into every single major city and in every single bedroom community and smaller town in the United States. And now it's live in over 300 cities in the United States where you can just push a button, quickly get quotes for lawn care service, hire somebody to come mow your yard for you.
Wow. Okay. I can relate to this in the fashion that I've met with probably three or four home service companies where the owner built a great company, seven figures, couple of them eight figures, and they're like, I'm going to go solve the problem with our software. The thing that our CRM doesn't do or does really poorly. I'm going to go make that and then I'm going to market it. And then I'm going to be a bajillionaire because my software is going to be taken up within 6 months and everyone's going to love it. I'm not saying that's what it was like for you, but
no, that's exactly. You just completely characterized the beginnings of building GreenPal. It's exactly how it went.
Well, and it's like I had to have those conversations where I'm like, you're going to hate me. I'm not going to take a dime of your money and we're not going to work together because I know what the software industry is like because I've seen people in it. I know people and I have contacts in it. And I know that you don't have what you think you have to take it there because you might have this awesome thing and you just paid $100,000 to have it dev'd out. But how are you going to get anybody to use it? Especially when there's 50 other outlets that do the same thing, right?
Right.
Or even if there's not a lot of competition, the bigger problem is now you don't even have a discernible market. You don't know that if there's a market or not, right?
That's right.
I've met with folks who have seen that hurdle. I don't think any of them climbed it like you did, but it's a crazy thing because it is a totally different world. It is a totally different aspect than running a landscape company. So I'm glad you pointed that out because it's so hard.
Yeah, and you just nailed it because that's exactly how it went down for us. And If you build it, they will not come. And the best way I can describe this is growing up in Nashville, Tennessee. We get maybe 100 or 1,000 people a week moving here who all want to be the next, I don't know, Luke Bryan or big
Yeah.
country music star. And so when they come to town, they think that, okay, well, I need to learn how to play the guitar. Okay. And they learn how to play the guitar, or maybe they can. And then, okay, I need to learn how to play the guitar and write my own songs. Okay. I need to, and then they get good at that. And they, okay, I need to learn how to play the guitar, write my own songs, and I need to learn how to sing. Okay. And maybe they get good at all that. And they think, okay, I did all that and I'm good. I'm ready to go. And then they realize the hard part is getting 100 people to show up at a show and getting 10,000 downloads on Spotify. That's the hard part. Building a startup is no different. You think as building a startup, okay, if I could just pay somebody to write the code, or maybe I write the code, I'm good. Oh, and then if I design it really nice, I'll be golden. And if I get like a good branding agency and I pay an SEO company, and it's like you think you just do these things, you're good, and you realize actually all of that stuff is table stakes. It's just the ticket price into the game. The hard thing, and the thing that's 10 times harder, is the distribution, is getting the product where it needs to be when people need it, and getting the awareness around the product at a local level. And for a marketplace like ours, doing that over and over and over and over and over again in every single city, because just because you're in Nashville doesn't mean that it works in Cincinnati. And so you have to do it over and over again. And so nobody tells you these things. Every movie you've ever watched about this kind of stuff, the part where they actually build the company is set to like a musical montage. If the movie The Social Network was a real movie about how they built that company, it would just be like them in their dorm room coding 14 hours a day and talking to users and trying to figure out what they wanted and solving problems. Like that stuff is not sexy. It's not fun. And nobody talks about that. You don't realize that until you get into the trenches. And so that's exactly how it was for us. It's just that my co-founder had quit his job and I had sold my business. I already tried to hang it up. And so neither one of us had a negotiated alternative. We had to make this thing work. And the only way the only way forward was to keep pushing and just figure it out. And I think you have to be willing to do that to breathe one of these new ideas to life.
Yeah. I mean, you absolutely have to. And I think that's the key for so many entrepreneurs, myself included, is there's no plan B. Like the bridges are burnt, the boats have sailed. Like this needs to
Exactly.
work. And while software is an interesting choice for making that work, you've obviously done it. So I want to ask you now, you had this realization, you got a product, you have, I guess at that point, an MVP, minimum viable product. What was the next step? How did you get your first handful of clients? And then it's one thing to have 12 clients. It's another thing to have 100 or 200 or 500. How did you start getting the word out about it?
Yeah, that is the hard part in the early days. And what you have to do is you have to set really small actionable numbers that aren't like vanity numbers. And so for us, the health of the business then and now is how many transactions per week. And that indicates how many buyers and sellers we're helping make connections with each other. And that's more important than overall traffic, more important than signups. It's really more important than sales, because it tells you if that number is growing, then you're moving in the right direction. And so we focused on that. It was like I read a book called
Lean
Lean
startup?
Analytics. Lean Startup, yeah, and then Lean Analytics. And so Lean Startup is a great book, and then Lean Analytics takes those methodologies and applies it to analytics. And in that book, they talk about the one metric that matters, the OMTM, the one metric that matters. And you have to figure out what that metric is and then focus all of your intensity around that one metric. And so we decided that would be number of transactions per week. And so we set a goal of, okay, we got to get 10. Well, let's just get 10. And so we did that, friends and family. And you really learn who your friends are. And what you're going to find out is that people who you thought were your friends, they won't even use your startup that you're trying to build. And so they're not really your friends. And so, so you're going to learn that. And so you can get 10 or 20 or 30 that way. So that's what we did. And then we sat there for a while because it was barely usable. It was like Wizard of Oz, where you would hire somebody and then behind the curtain, we would call the lawn care services and say, hey, what would this cost to do? And then can you do it on Thursday? And okay, it's lined up and we'll send you a PayPal when it's done. So it's like us hand cranking everything.
Ooh.
But then we kind of knew what needed to be built to automate all of those steps, those dozens of transactions. And we did that all the way up to 100 and maybe even 500. And then we started experimenting with, okay, what if we put an ad in Craigslist? Or what if we posted on Reddit? What if we hung out on Facebook groups and answered somebody when they wanted a lawn mowing service? And so we did that all the way up to 500 to 1,000. And we're still meeting with pretty much everybody using the product. We would go to their kitchen table. We would meet them at Starbucks. We would try to get face to face with them so we could understand what they wish the product would do that it didn't. And we could understand what were like the three things we needed to focus on right now. I know there's 500 things wrong with it, but what are the three most important ones that we need to work on this week? And we just kept doing that over and over and over again until we got the experience better and better and better, to where if 100 people used it, 90 were happy. And so you learned about how do you make more people happy? How do you solve their problems? And then after you do that, you kind of get something that is actually solving a real problem in the world. And until you get to that point, you don't have anything. So there's no reason to step on the gas. And so we got to a point that we realized, okay, what we are building matters. It's actually solving a problem for lawn care services that need new clients and people who just need a basic lawn mowing service. And then after that, we began to experiment with every single channel we could get our hands on, whether it be Facebook ads or Google ads or you name it, billboard, print, radio, TV, and we would just put a little bit of money behind each one of these. And there's a saying, fire bullets, then cannonballs. And so we were firing bullets, trying to figure out, okay, if we spend $1,000 on this, can we at least make our money back? And what we found out is no, you really can't in most channels. You're not going to make your money back in a year. And what we began to understand was our best ROI was around content marketing, inbound marketing, because when you're looking for a small lawn care service, they have no online presence. They might have a Facebook page, they may have a Google My Business page, but beyond that, you don't really know much about them. And so we would just get in the trenches and write up really good looking profile pages for every one of these lawn care services using our platform. And so we would say, okay, if we can make them have a great online presence, people will discover their properties. They'll hire them through GreenPal. They'll make money. The platform will make money. It's a win-win-win for everybody. And that's what we did. And we're still doing that now a decade later. That's how we get the majority, probably 60% of people that use GreenPal find us just through searching on Google or now ChatGPT, looking for a lawn mowing service nearby them. And they know that Angie's List, Thumbtack, Craigslist, Home Advisor, those solutions don't work because maybe they've tried them, or maybe they try them and GreenPal, and GreenPal is the only one that really delivers a lawn care person to come mow the yard the same day.
Yeah, you guys been training the LLMs to fix on GreenPal?
The LLMs are a mystery where it's like, okay, if you just do all of the things that go into running a successful business, most of the time it works out in the LLMs because it's going to pick you up. If people are talking good about you in Reddit or on Facebook or on Quora, it's going to pick you up and it's going to bring you in. If they're not, then it's not. And so it's kind of like you got to do what they call RCS, real company stuff. And if you're doing real company stuff, then the LLMs will reward you. There are some tactics. Truth be told, every one of them we try, I can't see them moving the needle, but we do get mentioned in all of the LLMs when you're looking for a lawn mowing service in a major city.
Nice, nice. That's one of the fun parts of what we do at my company is helping to train LLMs on our clients. So
Awesome.
it's up and
You got to be
coming. It's cool
intentional about
stuff. That's right. You got to be intentional about it. And a little hint: old school PR is coming back.
That's
So
right. Yeah. Yeah. And
yeah, that's the
there's no
part I
way to
love
hack
about it.
that. You just got to do it.
That's right. Exactly. The RCS. I like it. All right. I want to zoom back out a little bit here. So my main question, I'll get to my main question, but I want to make sure we have an understanding of exactly how GreenPal works. And then the main question is going to be, what comes first? Getting businesses on board to fulfill the services you connect them with? Or was it going B2C first? Because you're a hybrid, you're a marketplace, you're B2C and you're B2B. So I'd love for you to fill us in on that relationship.
Yeah, it's a chicken and egg problem that every marketplace like ours faces. And for us, That problem kind of evolved as time went on. So in the early days, we had none of either. And so what we did was we cold called every lawn care service in Nashville on Yelp and Craigslist and Facebook, anywhere you can find them. And I would pitch them personally. I would pitch them on the idea of, hey, I'm building this platform. Here's what we're thinking about how we're building it. You can be part of building it and be instrumental in how it's architected. You just have to submit the pricing and show up to mow these people's yards and get paid when you and do what you'll say you'll do. That's all you got to do. And then also, by the way, I will give you free coaching on how to grow a lawn care business because I built and sold one. And most of these guys or gals had heard of me because in Nashville, it was like the top one or two or three landscaping companies in the state of Tennessee. And so, it was like, oh, that was you? You did that? Yeah, that's me. And this is my new thing. And so that's what lowered the barrier to like their alarm going off. And so that's how we got the first 500 lawn care services. The first 500 lawn care services had my cell phone number and called me 7 days a week. And so that bought us like discretionary effort from them and kind of put them on the shelf, so to speak, to be ready when consumers were coming onto the platform to hire them. And so if you're not willing to take a really like hands-on in the trenches approach to supply in the early days, then it will never work because nobody's going to hang around. Vendors aren't going to come onto the platform if there's no consumers and vice versa. So you have to take some sort of hand-to-hand combat approach in the early days. Once we started getting a couple hundred transactions a week, we then were able to balance supply and demand a little bit better city by city and town by town, and then get to a point where we could do it in an automated way through Facebook ads for vendors and through inbound marketing for consumers. And no, we never got it perfect, and we still don't have it perfect today. We're always balancing that. But now today, GreenPal is somewhat of a known commodity in the landscaping industry for smaller lawn care services, and we get more than enough sign up organically today. And in most cities now have a waiting list. So usually in a multi-sided market like this, the side spending money is the harder to acquire, and the side making money usually is the easier to acquire. Not all marketplaces are that way, but ours is. And so now we spend 95% of our time on the consumer side. So that problem evolves as time goes on. You have to take different approaches to solving it, but that's how it is now today with GreenPal, with several 100,000 people using it. Now we're completely demand side, the consumer side constrained. We could service 10 million of these people if we could get them on the platform. And so that's what we're focused on.
How does GreenPal make money?
So it's a marketplace model that we take a small transactional fee that the lawn care services pay to access the platform. In effect, lawn care services are the customer of GreenPal, and the consumers pay the lawn care services through the platform, and then they pay the platform to run their business, kind of like a marketing fee in a sense. And that ranges from 5 to 20%, just depending on how much volume they're pushing through the platform. So it's unique in that sense. Like Uber, if you ride in an Uber, you're riding in a Uber. But with GreenPal, if you're a consumer using GreenPal, you're still hiring Joe's lawn service. It's just that Joe is using GreenPal to power his business.
Okay. So when you say 5 to 20%, is that 5 to 20% of the sales that come through the platform, or is
That's
it a
correct.
retainer plus percentage?
No, that's just the sales that they generate through the platform. So if they sign up and don't get any traction, they don't ever spend a dime. It's completely dependent on how much volume they're acquiring through the platform. And what we have found is a lot of pros, what they'll do is they'll get started with GreenPal as like how they get started in the landscaping business. They might have 2 or 3 customers, but they want 100. And so they grow their business with GreenPal. And then what happens is they start bringing all of their other customers into their account, because GreenPal ends up becoming a system of record for them. It's the CRM, it's the route optimization, they connect their Stripe account, and so it's all of their billing. It's kind of like the operating system for their little small business. And so they don't want to have a siloed, like, okay, here's my GreenPal customers and here's my customers I got through word of mouth. They actually bring them onto their account and have
Oh,
one place to run their whole business.
Okay, I didn't realize that. So maybe we're back to the tech then. The tech runs a little deeper than just being a marketplace.
It has
Um,
to, yeah. What you'll find out if you try to start one of these things is you'll find out there's always this argument between SaaS founders and marketplace founders as to who has it easier. And I'm going to be biased. I think SaaS founders have it easier, but that may actually get harder with AI. And so my belief is that your marketplace founder has to build like 90% of the tools anyway, because you have to have these tools and workflows on both sides of the transaction to make it valuable. So GreenPal has built 90% of the tools that any standalone SaaS product has as part of the offering to lawn care services to attract them to use the platform.
wow. Okay. So I'm really interested in this, where essentially you can function as a small lawn care business's CRM.
That's right.
Um,
We have to, because the customers they get through GreenPal, it's GreenPal's goal to keep that customer with them. Now, if they don't do a good job for them and they don't keep the customer happy, the customer can quickly hire somebody else and then they get put on their CRM. And so it's kind of a community of buyers and sellers in the same way that probably like an Amazon marketplaces works, or eBay sellers, how those might work, or Airbnb is another good one. So it is a CRM in a sense of you have, okay, these are all of my customers. Here's all their contact information. Here's what they're all booked for. Here's what they've all spent. And then we really try to drive upsells in the sense of, hey, you need to quote seeding and mulch and fertilizer for this customer. And we really try to prompt both sides of the transaction for upsells. And so it's kind of like a marketing automations piece of it as well. And what we have found is the deeper we can go in the landscaper's workflow of running their business, the more retained they are, the more
mhm.
responsive they are, and the happier they make the consumer. If GreenPal for them is kind of this thing they might look at once a week and maybe mow 1 or 2 yards on, the consumer is not going to get a good experience. You have to be entrenched in their day-to-day life in order to offer that Uber-like experience of you come onto the app as a consumer and magic happens. And it's taken us a decade to figure that out, but that's really what it takes. And that's one of the traps that a lot of these new founders fall into. You don't realize that to deliver that Uber-like experience, that your application has to be embedded into the hour by hour, day in the life of the professional. If not, you're not going to
Mhm.
be able to deliver that real time experience.
And I'm gathering this is different from maybe Angie is or isn't your competition, but a platform like that is, tell me if this is accurate, it's different because me as a consumer, if I'm on GreenPal, I'm going to say where I am, the service I'm looking for, whatever else are in that filter. And then you're going to present me with anywhere from 5 to 10, 20, however many options. And then I get to go through, sift through the options and then pick that company. Is that accurate? Versus where Angie, they take your information and then they just send your info to like 20 places that just blow you up.
Yeah, that's a very good distinction. So there is no shortage of places for names and phone numbers. And so, as a consumer, if you need to get something done around the house, you can go to a place like Thumbtack or Angie or even Craigslist or Facebook, and you can get an unlimited amount of names and phone numbers and maybe even reviews. And maybe you can put it all in one place, and these services will distribute your information, like you just said, to all of them. But you still have to poll these people. You still have to manually talk to each one and negotiate on the price and their availability and their service offering. And so it's still a manual process. So the introduction piece of it is automated and streamlined for you, but you still have to negotiate and hire them and then pay them. And you still have to do those things manually. Well, with GreenPal, it's the only end to end solution where you can literally pop your address in, you're presented with quotes. You don't have to talk to anybody if you don't want to. You hire them, they come out and do the transaction for you. You get all the photography of the completed work, and then you pay them right through the app. And you can hire somebody to do this chore for you and never have to speak with them on both sides of the transaction if you don't want to. And Angie's List, Thumbtack, they handle the first piece of it, the introduction, but not the pricing transparency and not the hiring, scheduling, and payment of it. And that's where the drop off happens. Now those other platforms are really good for if you're remodeling a house and you need a painter, a cabinet guy, flooring contractor, a pool service, like they're pretty handy for those kinds of things because the alternative is a lot of Craigslist work. It's a lot of just Google work. And those services are helpful for those types of use cases. But if you just want a basic lawn person to come out and mow today for $35, GreenPal is the best solution for that use case.
How do you, I guess, starting out, I know you said you did a lot of just pounding the pavement, being in Facebook groups, things like that, but how do you guys continually get people to continue to use or start to use GreenPal? How do you guys market yourselves?
Yeah, it's challenging because the unit economics of it, because we don't make 100% of the ticket. We take a small piece of it. So how do you go out and acquire a customer on a lot of these paid platforms when on something, many of them, it might cost you $300 to acquire a customer. And, it's going to take a while to make that back. And so for us, we have to really just focus all of our efforts on as much organic traffic as we can. So, like I mentioned earlier, carpeting the internet with as much useful content as we can around who are the best lawn care services in Cincinnati, Ohio, and all of the bedroom communities around Cincinnati, and making it to where when you are searching for a lawn care service, that a GreenPal property pops up. That's the main way. And then beyond that, we invest heavily into PR. So my co-founder, that's all he does is he's always on the local ABC affiliate or Fox affiliate or local newspaper for every major city in the United States. And he's usually on TV around 75 times a year because all he does is reach out to PR, tell them about GreenPal or tell them a story that they would like to share about a GreenPal user, and getting that local earned media was one way that we keep the brand front and center. That develops good signals for LLMs. It develops good signals for SEO. So it kind of reinforces the other strategy. But also, whenever we get on TV in like the Chattanooga, Tennessee local Fox affiliate about a story about GreenPal, we'll get 1,000 people sign up. So there's also a direct ROI, one-to-one return on investment for that type of thing. So local earned media, organic inbound content marketing, a little bit of social, a lot of Reddit. People are always asking for lawn mowing services. And so we try to monitor if GreenPal's in that conversation. Just a lot of like sloggy hand-to-hand combat still a decade later. We don't have the unit economics to be able to throw $1 million at Google Facebook ads and for it to be, ROI positive. It just doesn't work for our platform. And that's a trap that a lot of new founders fall into. They think, okay, user acquisition, I'll just Facebook ads and Google ads. Unless you're one of the big dogs, that doesn't usually work.
Do you guys, maybe this is a testament to the actual tech, but retaining people in using GreenPal, it's one thing for one person to use it once, but how do you make sure you get them either to use it again or to spread the word?
Yeah, it really is like what I was talking about earlier when we stay with friends and family mode for almost a year because it was just such a piece of crap. There was no reason to turn on user acquisition. And then we stayed in Nashville for 2 years because still, if 100 people used it, maybe 50 were happy. And so it's like, okay, let's make at least 90 happy. And so I read somewhere a founder once said, if you put a viral loop on a turd, you still get a turd. And so that needs to be like beat into the head of every founder. If you can't hold on to a majority of the users using your product, and the ones you do lose need to be outside of like your control. They moved or they started, in our case, mowing it themselves or something. Then there's no reason to try to scale the business. You need to go backwards, fix that, and then move forwards. The fancy word for this is product market fit. And so for us, that's something that we live and die by. And that's what when you see like a startup raising a bunch of money and then 18 months later they're out of business, it's usually because they tried to scale too quickly. And it's like the same thing as putting rocket fuel into a Toyota Camry. It just doesn't work. And so you got to get that right. And we still, to this day, are maniacal about holding on and retaining the users that we get because that's the only shot that we got. One way that I do this, because I'm always paranoid about it, is I still do at least an hour a day, sometimes 2 or 3 hours a day of customer support. So I'll answer the 1-800 number. I'll man the in-app chat line. I'll do email tickets. We have a Facebook group for our pros that I'm in all day, because I don't want there to be this gap that develops between like my perspective and my logic and the user's logic. And so when you're always talking to users, even if it's just stupid stuff like I can't log in. Well, why is it that 10 people this week can't log in? Maybe we need to revisit that workflow. It really keeps you tuned into what the most important things are going on in the business and where you're upsetting people,
Yeah,
are
because
going
as
on in the
someone
business and where
someone who
you're
uses a
upsetting
lot of
people.
software, if there's a piece of software where I can't get help quickly with something that's wrong or something that could be improved, like you said, there's a huge wedge that is now driven between me
Yeah.
as the user and I guess the owner of the company, right? Because the buck stops with you. So I love
Yeah.
hearing that you're you're strongly involved in the support.
Yeah. And not only getting help quickly, but just not needing help in the first place, and it's like when you are doing your own customer support for at least an hour a day, that never gets away from you. And it's like that show Undercover Boss. You see the guy who's the CEO of Dunkin' Donuts, or and this is just like a hypothetical one. I don't know if this episode exists, but he doesn't know how to use the donut fryer, and like he doesn't know, and like he's just blown away as to how long the line has gotten at this store because the checkout experience sucks, and it's just like he doesn't understand or know any of those things. And you don't ever want that to be you of your little startup. You should always
Mhm.
know what people are upset about. And the best way that I know to deal with that is by doing your own support to a degree. And in the early days, all of it. I think the first 1,000 sales need to be hand to hand combat, belly to belly, face to face, because then you kind of know what you're building. But then beyond that, you still need to bake that in intentionally in your daily routines.
Well, I think that's the single foremost way to maintain your repeat value
That's
per
right.
customer because they're done. They're not coming
Gone.
back.
They're gone, and they're
Yeah,
telling 5 people you suck. And so
exactly.
it's the worst that they're not coming back. It's that they're telling people on Reddit and Facebook groups and Yelp and on Google reviews and Facebook reviews that you suck. And so it's worse than that.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. Well, Bryan, we could easily keep going for another hour here, but I got to let you get going. This has been awesome. Thank you so much. I want to make sure that anybody listening out there that they can reach out to you. They can go use GreenPal, be a part of it. What's the best way to do all the above?
Yeah, greenpal.com. Sign up as a consumer, sign up as a vendor. Anybody want to hit me up? LinkedIn's a good one. Just Google my name, Bryan Clayton. You'll find me there. Or Instagram's a good one. You'll find me there. Just Google my name. And yeah, and if you used it and if you liked it, tell me. If you didn't like it, tell me.
Awesome, man. Well, keep fighting the good fight. Thanks for putting up with my voice here. Same to you listeners out there. I'll go home and work on this. But Bryan, thank you again, man. This has been awesome. Best of luck to you the rest of this year.
Thank you for having me on. I enjoyed it.